What happens when the secrets of ancient memory masters meet the discoveries of modern neuroscience? Welcome, explorer of the mind, to a fascinating odyssey through time and the human brain. Today we dive into one of the most remarkable alignments between ancestral wisdom and contemporary science, the method of loci, or memory palace, and its validation by modern neuroscience. Imagine possessing a technique capable of transforming your ordinary memory into an instrument of extraordinary precision. This is exactly what the method of loci offers. And no, this isn't just a simple mnemonic trick, it's a complete mapping of the mind, a tool that has shaped humanity's intellectual history for millennia. Get ready, for together, we will cross this temporal portal, decode its mechanisms, and perhaps understand a little better what it means to possess this remarkable faculty we call human memory. The method of loci was born in ancient Greece, around the 5th century BCE. Tradition attributes it to the poet Simonides of Ceos, witness to a tragic event that would forever change our understanding of memory. Following the catastrophic collapse of a banquet hall, Simonides was able to identify the unrecognizable bodies of victims simply by recalling their positions around the table. This revelation made him understand the extraordinary potential of spatial memory as a memorization tool. Simonides understood that human memory is not simply a passive receptacle for information, but an active process of constructing meaning through mental space. He realized that when memorizing, the mind enters a special state where, freed from distractions, it becomes more receptive to spatial associations. He understood this was a unique opportunity for learning, but he also knew that most people, when confronted with large amounts of information, get lost in confusion and forgetfulness. His mission was to create a method that could be taught and practiced, so that the mind would be prepared to organize information spatially. In essence, he wanted to facilitate learning and open doors to cognitive mastery, even when everything seems chaotic and elusive. This compassion for human learning is the foundation of the method of loci. The method of loci guides us through three fundamental cognitive processes that every learner traverses. 1. The creation of the memory palace. In this first step, the mind constructs a familiar spatial environment, such as one's home or a daily route, which will serve as an organizational structure for the information to be memorized. Once this mental construction is complete, the learner finds themselves facing what neuroscientists today call the activated hippocampus, described as a brain region specialized in spatial mapping. For the experienced practitioner, the memory palace offers the possibility of extraordinarily efficient memorization. If the learner can recognize and fully exploit this innate spatial capacity, they achieve remarkable mnemonic ease, and the effort of memorization diminishes considerably. This recognition doesn't depend on particular rituals or doctrines. It's a direct and complete experience where the mind uses its natural abilities without filters or distortions. At this moment, all the usual limitations of memory seem to dissolve. On the other hand, for those who are poorly prepared, the complexity of constructing a mental palace can seem intimidating. The mind, instead of recognizing this spatial capacity as innate, may interpret it as an obstacle due to fear or attachment to familiar methods. In this case, the learner retreats, losing the opportunity to amplify their memory, and enters the following stages with a handicap that will make memorization more difficult and less effective. 2. The visualization of mnemonic images. As Carl Gustav Jung once said, mental images are projections of the unconscious, powerful and inevitable until we understand them as parts of ourselves. In this phase, the learner finds themselves in a state of consciousness, freed from the constraints of memorization by repetition, and in a dimension where conventional limitations no longer exist. Here, the mind creates stunning visual projections, images that can appear as vivid and sometimes strange representations of the information to be memorized. The visualizations in this phase directly reflect the emotional state and informational content that the soul seeks to retain. They manifest in two distinct forms: clear images and complex images. In the clear visualization stage, the learner begins by creating simple and direct images that represent the essential concepts to be memorized. These figures may appear as symbols, people, or objects carrying meaning, radiating the essential qualities of the information. These clear visualizations possess a serene presence and offer immediate understanding. However, for the unprepared mind, these images may seem too simplistic or ineffective, leading the learner to doubt the power of this technique. In the complex visualization stage, if the learner does not recognize the effectiveness of simple images, they are gradually confronted with more intense visualizations, known as bizarre or exaggerated images. These figures are manifestations of more complex information, sometimes taking surprising or grotesque forms. It's important to understand that these strange images are not distractions or obstacles but powerful expressions of the mind itself, reflecting the complexity of the information that needs to be memorized. This phase is described as a state where the mind is freed from usual physical limitations. It's a pure state of psychic manifestation, where everything is amplified. The visualizations that arise resemble dreams, but unlike ordinary dreams, they possess a striking clarity and vividness. This occurs because the mind, now engaged in a process of active creation, experiences its internal energies in an unfiltered way. Everything that was abstract emerges with an almost tangible intensity. These visualizations are considered opportunities for learning and effective memorization, as each represents an aspect of the information that requires integration or transcendence. Those who maintain full awareness during this phase can perceive that all these images, whether simple or complex, ordinary or bizarre, are mere creations of the mind in service of memorization. The recognition of this truth allows the learner to dissolve confusion and achieve optimal memorization. At this stage, the method of loci advises the learner to focus on what neuroscientists today call active mental imagery, described as a vigorous activation of the visual cortex and associative regions of the brain. Recognizing and mastering this mental imagery is the key to total memorization, as it represents the innate capacity of all beings to create powerful visual associations. It is the sun amidst the clouds of visualizations, the light that remains unchanged despite all mental projections. Retrieval and application. In this final phase, the learner faces a crucial moment: the retrieval of memorized information determined by the accumulated energy of all images, associations, and intentions, what we now call mnemonic consolidation. It's as if the entire previous journey had led to this point, where what we carry in our mental palace determines our ability to retrieve information. Upon entering this phase, the learner has already experienced spatial construction in creating the memory palace and confronted their own projections and visualizations in the imagery phase. Now, they find themselves in a state of greater cognitive density where the desire to retrieve information intensifies, guided by the ability to mentally navigate the space created previously. In this retrieval phase, consciousness is influenced by the mental paths created, which act as subtle marks left by the associations formed previously. These marks function as magnetic forces, drawing the mind towards circumstances and experiences that reflect the inner state of the sought information. If, for example, the learner carries a large amount of poorly organized information, this disorganization could guide them toward chaotic and inefficient retrieval. Similarly, clear associations and vivid mental images create a vortex of energy that shapes the type of access the mind will have in the recall process. During this phase, the learner experiences a series of navigations associated with the retrieval process. These navigations often include mental journeys through the places of the memory palace, a metaphor for the activation of associated neural networks. Here, the mind is called to choose a retrieval path, unconsciously guided by emotional tendencies and impulses created during the previous phases. In many descriptions, the method of loci suggests that when facing these paths, the learner should maintain a state of detachment and lucidity. Only then can they avoid being blindly led toward inefficient or incomplete retrieval. For those who can maintain calm and detachment, this phase offers one last chance at mastery. There remains the possibility of not being overwhelmed by performance anxiety, of choosing the path of serene retrieval. This is the goal of the memory practitioner. Rather than becoming agitated under the sway of illusions and attachments, they must recognize these navigations as manifestations of their own mind, ephemeral and malleable by nature. Throughout the experiences of this final phase, consciousness feels a strong attraction toward the original information, a process that, according to the method of loci, can be compared to a psychic storm. It's as if the urge to retrieve the exact information, to restore it completely, becomes irresistible. The quality of this retrieval is not always a conscious choice. It happens through a deep instinctive call, where the characteristics of the restitution are shaped by the learner's state of mind. This process also reflects the belief that each retrieval attempt is an opportunity for cognitive growth. The information that the mind will retrieve will align most closely with its mnemonic development. However, many do not understand this opportunity and end up retrieving information under unfavorable conditions, where forgetting perpetuates itself. Those who can see beyond this illusion, however, can reach a state where, instead of laborious retrieval, they can merge with what neuroscientists now call automatic access, the ultimate essence of expert memory. According to the method of loci, preparation for this final phase begins well before the need for retrieval. By contemplating the nature of our associations and visualizations during learning, we become more aware of the impulses that shape our ability to retrieve information. Cognitive practices such as meditation and reflection on our learning process strengthen the capacity for detachment, helping the mind to remain free from the dramas that arise in this critical phase. Thus, the method of loci reveals a simple but profound truth, that learning and retrieval are interconnected, and that the cycle of memorization is nothing more than a continuous expression of our own choices and perceptions. By freeing ourselves from attachments to ineffective methods, we free ourselves from the cycle of forgetting and achieve mnemonic mastery, the state in which there is no more memorization effort, for there is no longer the illusion of a separation between the learner and the information. The method of loci is not just a mnemonic technique or a collection of esoteric beliefs about memory. It's a tool for self-knowledge, a mirror for our mind, and a map for our cognitive development. It teaches us that forgetting is the great full stop of ordinary human history, but it's also the portal to new beginnings in learning. As a modern neuroscientist once said, when you memorize, there is only one question that matters. How richly and meaningfully have you created associations? In this sense, this exploration of the alignment between ancient methods and modern neuroscience invites us to reflect on our own approach to learning. Are we ready for the journey to mnemonic mastery? Are we prepared to let go of everything we believe to be limitations of our memory? Perhaps by contemplating these teachings, we can not only prepare to memorize better, but also learn to truly exploit the full potential of our mind. If this journey into the mysteries of memory resonated with you, share this video and subscribe to the channel. Let us know in the comments what intrigues you most about the alliance between ancient wisdom and modern science, for the path of self-knowledge is long, and together we can explore the greatest mysteries of human existence. Thank you for watching.